Hello everyone and welcome to Alaskan Mama Vlogger Cake School. Today I'm going to be teaching the techniques that I use to create this 3D football cake. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is bake your favorite cake recipe into a baking dish in the shape of a bowl. Make sure it is an oven safe dish, and then once your cake is cooled, you're going to go ahead and use a serrated knife and level off the bottom of your cake. That way when you flip it over, it lays flat and it's easy to work with and looks professional. Once your cake is level, go ahead and flip it onto the board. And then we're going to work on getting the football shape. And the way that I do that is I go ahead and cut a strip or segment out of the center of the round cake. Here I started with about 1.5 inches and I pulled that out. And then once you go ahead and push the cake back together, that is what gives you the football shape. And I wanted a little bit more of a football shape, and so I cut a little bit more from each side. You want to make sure if the first cut isn't enough to cut even amounts from both pieces, or else you're going to have a lopsided cake and you don't want that. As you see here, we have a nice football shape. So now we're going to go ahead and secure our cake down to the board. I'm just using my favorite white buttercream and putting this all over the bottom of one piece of cake. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side and make sure that I also frost the inner part of that cake. That will help secure the two pieces together. Now it's time to crumb coat your cake, and I'm going to be using the same vanilla buttercream to do that. This does not need to be perfect or pretty, you just need to get an even thin layer of frosting over the entire cake. Once you're happy with your crumb coat, go ahead and set your cake to the side, and you are going to need some brown fondant. And we will be using brown fondant to roll it out and cover our cake to get that football look. Make sure when you're rolling out your fondant to get a nice even thickness. You don't want to have thicker and thinner pieces throughout, so just take your time and get it pretty even. Now my fondant is rolled out and I'm happy with the thickness. I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of fabric that I picked up from Joann Fabrics, and it had a perfect kind of pattern to lay on top of my fondant and hand press to get that football pattern on it, and just gives a more lifelike effect. As you can see here, this is the final result of the impression, and I'm very happy with it. Once you have put an impression onto the fondant, you do have to work relatively quick, and you don't want to let the fondant stretch or it will stretch the design or pattern that you've made with the impression, and that will not look nice. So go ahead and quickly get the fondant secured to the football cake and trim off the remaining fondant. Next, I'm going to use a hand stitching tool to give that hand sewn football effect. It just gives more detail and makes it lifelike, and those are the things that a customer looks for in a cake. Here I'm stitching down the sides of the cake, and the way that I do that is I just keep my hand still and turn the cake board, and it gives you a perfectly straight line. Next, I'm putting on the white and yellow detail, as you'll see in the picture, and I'm just using a sharp knife and layering my fondant. Then I'm taking some water on a paintbrush and laying that over the stitching, and then putting the white fondant over that. Whenever you're going to secure things down, I like to use water on a paintbrush, and that just makes sure that it won't budge. Then I'm going back over that white with another stitching tool and using water on a paintbrush to mark where I will place the white fondant. Now we're going to work on this Steelers badge. I just cut out a white piece of fondant, and here I'm using a black edible ink pen and writing Steelers. Then I took a fine paintbrush and some blue, red, and yellow food coloring and hand painted the Steelers badge. Now I'm going to go ahead and secure the badge onto the football. I'm just using a paintbrush with some water and marking the spot for the badge, and very carefully place it on there. You don't want to touch the wet part. Now I'm going to be putting the grass around the football. I'm using a Wilton tip 233. It is a grass tip, and I just dyed some of my vanilla buttercream green, and that is going to be the border around my football, and it looks like it's just laying in a bed of grass. And that is it for this cake. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below what kind of cake would you like to see in my next tutorial.